Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for another video. So in today's video I am going to be giving my brutally honest review of the Storybook Vale DLC, which obviously launched on Wednesday in Disney Dreamlight Valley. It is a purchasable DLC that you can purchase to be kind of an addition to the base game. It brings you all new islands, all new characters, new furniture, new foliage and new quest lines to explore. I wanted to give my honest opinion of so far whether I would recommend the game. Now I'm going to be completely brutally honest here. I'm going to do pros and cons. I'm not just going to kind of hype up the DLC. I'm going to give you an honest review so that you have a good opinion of it in case you haven't picked it up yet and you want to know if there's anything you should be aware of that could be potentially a drawback. Obviously I will be bringing up things that are probably going to be fixed over time, so obviously I'll mention that, but I wanted to just give my honest opinion, so let's get started. So as I kind of mention each pro, I'm also going to give a con to this as well if there is one I think of. But my first pro is obviously, as you can tell from this shot, the biomes are just absolutely incredible. They are so beautiful. They've had a lot of thought and care put into them. They give off this gorgeous like cluttered feel in every biome you go to. There's a lot of big structures, there's a lot of landmarks that they've included this time, such as a big teapot falls in Ever After, and also the big kind of like library structure we have in the bind, and then also obviously the big Mythopia themed structures to do with Hercules over in Mythopia. So there are a lot of big landmarks that add to the kind of look of the biomes. So even if the biomes are completely empty, there are still structures going on that are going to give it a lot of scale, make it seem quite built up and full and not too empty. Another thing that's a pro of the biomes is obviously as they are all quite unique and quite different. I was a bit worried going into this that there would be quite a lot of obstruction, so I thought there might be like immovable objects that we couldn't move in the biomes, like big kind of rock structures or trees or something that was just going to be kind of set in stone in the biomes. And I'm very happy to know that pretty much all of them you can just completely have this blank slate. There are no ponds in the middle to get in the way or kind of furniture pieces or structures that you can't move. It has given us such a good open plane to decorate with. There is a lot of creative freedom to be able to use this space to make it your own, and also use lots of new stuff to kind of decorate it in theme with how you want it to look. Honestly, I couldn't think of a con of these biomes. I think they are very niche, so if they're not your kind of vibe, then you may struggle with kind of utilizing them, whereas I feel like in the previous DLC and obviously in the base game, the biomes are a little bit more kind of varied and you can kind of do what you want with them apart from a couple of them. Whereas these ones are obviously, as I said, very niche. They stick to a very strict theme, so trying to kind of change the theme of a biome away from what it is originally is quite hard because of all the big kind of land structures and decorations that are kind of built into the foundations of the biomes. So it kind of could be a con for those of you who like to keep things a little bit more simple and don't like things to be as tailored. Talking of things being tailored, my second pro is that in this DLC, which we've never got before, we have got tailored skins for Scrooge and Remy's. Now, these are just automatically applied to the shop and the restaurant when you unlock them in the bind in this DLC, so it's not like you can equip them. They kind of just come in this. I think these are absolutely gorgeous. I'm glad to see that they've done this because that was one of our complaints about the previous DLC is Scrooge and Remy's just kind of stuck out like a bit of a sore thumb. They looked a bit strange because they weren't really fitting in with this new kind of magical space that we just unlocked. So it is lovely to see that they have done something this time to kind of tailor it and make it a lot more fitting for these whimsical biomes. And obviously in terms of that, there is a con, which is obviously they do seem very heavily tailored to this original biome you start in called the Bind. It is this gorgeous autumnal biome and they really fit well here. However, if you wanted to use your Scrooge and Remy's in the two other biomes in this DLC, you may struggle to kind of tie them in. Obviously you can still use them, it's not like you can't move them there or anything like that, but obviously as you can tell they are very heavily themed around the bind, so that is one of the only things about the reskin. However, even though that is a con, I just feel like the pro outweighs the con in this one, and I'm more than happy to have a skin on it. And I would love in the future if we could get skins for Remy's and Scrooge's that are kind of interchangeable. We can equip them onto the ones we want and kind of decorate them a little bit more to make them more tailored to our style. Now, another pro obviously is the critters that come in this DLC. In the 3 biomes, we have 3 unique critters. We have the owls in the bind, the mini dragons in Ever After, and the mini Pegasus over in Mythopia. I think these critters are genuinely the best critters they've ever done in game. I am quite biased because I love a kind of whimsical, magical look, but I just think they're so beautifully designed. I think they all come in a really lovely shade of colours. I think they all have very cute kind of poses, and they all just look absolutely amazing to hang out with. And I just think they've honestly smashed it when it comes to the critters. I think they're one of the biggest highlights of this DLC is being able to unlock those and kind of take them on your adventures. They bring a whole new element to the critters that we know and love in game, which I feel like so far have been pretty kind of standard animals or standard critters that you'd kind of find anywhere, whereas these are obviously much more on the mythical side, especially with the dragon and the Pegasus. They feel a lot more kind of whimsical and just absolutely incredible. Now, one of my only cons when it comes to the critters, which isn't really a con, it's just more of a point in case you were thinking about this, is that they only come in 4 colours. Now, the only reason why this may be seen as a con is because in the base game and the previous DLC, all the critters have come in 5 colours. It's always just been that way. They've always come in a range of 5 colours, whereas in this DLC, for some reason, they've gone with 4. Now, I don't know if maybe there's a reason for that. If maybe later on we're going to be unlocking some new ones that come in different colours, or maybe in Act 2 they'll add more. I think it's unlikely, but it is just something to note that they do only come in 4 colours, which is a bit of a shame, but it makes sense because you get kind of 1 per biome in the Ever After and Mythopia. There is 4 kind of sections to the biome, so you kind of have 1 spawn in each, so it makes sense. But I would have liked maybe another one just so it's kind of on par with the other DLC. But I just think regardless of the fact that they come in 1 less colour, I think they are so worth it. Now, obviously, talking of unique things to come in the DLC, we have 5 unique characters to unlock. Now, obviously, as Act 1 has just dropped, we can only unlock 3 so far, which is Merida from Brave, Flynn from Tangled, and Hades from Hercules. Now, I've really enjoyed unlocking these characters. I was obviously super excited for them before it had even dropped, but I could not wait to get in and unlock them. Now, the thing I really love about how they've kind of placed these characters is they've done a very similar thing as they did with the previous DLC, which they've kind of tailored one character to one biome. So Merida is in the bind, Flynn is in Ever After, and Hades is in Mythopia. But something they did do differently from the previous DLC when it comes to finding the characters is they found a much more unique way to find them, especially Flynn and Hades. You kind of find them in a different location and through a different means than if you were kind of just finding them in the biome just randomly. And I also really love how they've made Merida a kind of main character for this storyline, in the sense of, in the previous DLC and in the base game, you'll know that Merlin works overtime. Merlin is always there. He's always the one you go to when you unlock stuff, when you progress the quests. When you were in the Rift in Time DLC, you'd have him arrive to unlock the doors with your mist and unlock new biomes. And I feel like this time they've given him some time off and they have had Merida done it, which I really, really love. I think it makes so much more sense that someone who is tied to the DLC and to the storyline here is the one who's kind of progressing that with you. I just think it makes so much more sense, and I really like how that's included. Obviously, as I did say, 5 characters. We will have 2 characters come in Act 2, which is 100% Maleficent. We know that. And potentially another character, which I think is very, very likely to be Aurora. Both of them from Sleeping Beauty. As obviously, if you saw her in the trailer anyway, it kind of hints at Aurora. But as you play Act 1, it's pretty evident that the chances are very, very high of her arriving. So I am very excited to see those. Obviously, a con of that is you do have to wait a long time for Act 2 to get those 2 characters, which can be a bit of a shame, but it does mean you have time to quest with those original 3, get everything in the biomes unlocked, collect your resources, progress with the main quest line, and also obviously start turning these beautiful biomes into lovely decorated places ready for Act 2 in 2025. As well as that, we obviously meet the Lawkeeper, who obviously isn't like a character in the game from a Disney movie that we can like unlock and take around with us, but we have got interactions with them, and I really, really have enjoyed that. I think it's really nice to have a kind of central character that we go to for a certain reason, helps us a lot with information about the Vale, and obviously is a kind of unique character that they've come up with this. I just think it fits so well with the theme of the DLC and this kind of storybook magic. Of course, we talk to a magical book. It just only makes sense. Now, the next thing I wanted to highlight, which obviously is kind of stemming from the Lawkeeper is snippets. Now, snippets are pieces of the pages of the Lawkeeper's book that have kind of come out and flown away essentially and have turned into these like adorable paper creatures. We've got some birds, we've got frogs, and we've also got the little demon snippets that you can find all around the biomes in the whole Vale. You can also find white ones over in your Dreamlight Valley, where you can use these to craft the white birds into unique critters, and the little snippets, so in different colors, in case you're missing any and you want to unlock the tapestries. Now, the snippets are obviously caught with your royal net. I really love the look of the net. I think the way it kind of sits over your shoulder is really, really lovely. My only complaint about the net before the game had even dropped was I wish the stem of it was a little bit shorter so it felt like an actual net, but I don't feel like it's a game changer for me. I feel like regardless, I still think it's cool. I can't wait to see new skins come for it, and obviously reskins come from our existing tool skins we already have, which we should hopefully get for the royal net as well, so we can kind of match it to our other sets that we've got. And I just think the gameplay aspect of being able to go around with the royal net and catch the snippets and then use these to unlock the tapestries is just such a unique idea. I think it fits with this kind of whimsical look. And something I really do love is obviously once you've completed all of this, you will still have snippets flying around, and I think they do just add to this like whimsical look of these biomes. I just love the idea of knowing I can just let them fly around and hang out and, you know, just add to the atmosphere of each biome. Now, obviously, the only con that I found to the kind of whole royal net and snippet kind of idea is that once the DLC is done, or once you have completed all the tapestries, I don't really see the reason why you would need to catch them or why you'd need to use your royal net. I do wish the royal net had another function, maybe to like go around and find story magic and be another way to get that, kind of like how we had with Mist in the previous DLC. I kind of just wish it had another function so that it at least felt like we had another reason to use it, because I do worry that obviously once the DLC is done and we've completed everything, are we really going to need to use our royal net? Now, we don't know, obviously they may introduce something in Act 2 that gives us a reason to use it, and they may add more snippets in or more tapestries or something, but I do worry that that is a slight con with it, is I don't really see how in the longevity of the game we're going to need that. Now, obviously following on from that, I did mention tapestries. Now, the tapestries are from the Lawkeeper, and as you collect the snippets in different colors, you take them to her and you can unlock the tapestries. Now, you get given a range of puzzle pieces for each kind of Disney franchise or Disney movie, and when you complete these, you get a unique reward. Now, I'm slowly making my way through all these rewards and kind of unlocking and seeing what they like, and so far I'm really, really happy with the kind of look of them and the detail of them. I think they're amazing furniture, clothing rewards, and I cannot wait to get more. Now, the only con with this, again, obviously going back to that, is that I really do hope they continue adding to these, but I don't know if they will. Like, I would love a new set of them for Act 2, because they kind of, you get to a certain point and then you can't really do any more with them and you can't unlock any more, which is sad, but I just was hoping for some more. So my hope is that when it gets to Act 2, we get some more kind of added, some more challenging ones, and kind of some more movies covered in those tapestries. Now, obviously, another thing about the tapestries I forgot to mention that is lovely is that once you have completed them, they unlock and you can display them in your house using the new craftable frames. Now, these frames will allow you to pop the tapestry in, same as you do with a memory frame, and you can just filter through them by interacting with it to pick the tapestry you want. I've popped a couple of these in my storage room and I'm already loving how they look. I think they just add so much to a room, especially when it's themed around a certain movie. Now, another thing that I wanted to highlight that's probably one of my top things from the DLC is the trials. Now, I feel like the trials were kind of mentioned in the showcase, but we didn't know how important they'd be for the storyline, and it actually turns out they are. They are the storyline, basically. They are the way to progress the storyline. And I have to say, the trials are so, so impressive. I think the unique way of using trials to progress the storyline and do questing for the DLC storyline is so, so engaging. It works so much better. I am an active hater of fetch questing, which is where you have to obviously speak to a character, go and get what they need, bring it back to them, then bring it to someone else. Like, you're constantly just going back and forth between characters characters for seemingly no reason. And I feel like this kind of structure of using trials is so good for the game. I hope it's something they continue with and continue doing these unique quest lines. Now, obviously the puzzles aren't too difficult, but we do have to remember, obviously the game is kind of catered to all ages, so they can't make it too difficult. So as much as I'd love it to be a bit more challenging, I think it has to, you know, obviously cater to everyone, which I understand. But I think even despite that, they've come up with some amazing, unique ideas in there. I think the trials themselves look incredible. I think they have such different vibes between them. And I just love the fact that there is 3 of them in Mythopia and Ever After that we can explore. And it obviously progresses the storyline along and does it in a much more unique way than just questing. Now, obviously in the DLC, the main currency, as we always have, we have one in the base game, we have one in the previous DLC. In this one is story magic, which obviously we can collect in the usual way by doing the story magic daily tasks and also the ongoing kind of challenge rewards that you can do all the time. And these will obviously add up and give you story magic that you can use to unlock the new biomes in this DLC in both Mythopia, The Bind and Ever After. And the story magic obviously doesn't really seem to help with anything else. You do need it in a couple of like crafting recipes, but nothing major. Obviously to craft any of the traps that we have for the snippets, the traps and the lures and the repellents and all of that, you need it. So it is kind of using other stuff, and obviously to upgrade those as well you need quite a lot of it, so it is an ongoing kind of currency we're going to need the whole way through. Now, my only con with story magic is that I feel like it's very, very difficult to get. It does feel a lot more grindy than the previous DLC. I feel like obviously Mist was a grind, but you had multiple ways to get it. You could get it from doing obviously the daily and the ongoing duties, but you could also time bend to find Mist. You could destroy the swirling sands to find Mist. Whereas I feel like in this DLC, the only real way to get it is from doing those tasks. So it definitely feels a lot more grindy than the previous. Now, it can be a pro and a con, because obviously it's a con because it means it takes you longer to progress through everything. You're kind of having to spend that time grinding to do it, which some people aren't a fan of. But at the same time, I really like it because it means I have to grind. So it's like, for me personally, I love that fact that we do have to grind. It means I'm taking longer to do everything. And I'm kind of taking my time and exploring and kind of grinding it up that way. But I do wish there was another way to get it. I think it would have been really good if it was like, when you catch a snippet, there's a chance of it dropping 50 story magic or something. I think that would have been really good. I think also the inkies would have been really good if they had drop rates of it. I think it just needed a little extra to help those out that don't have the time to sit and grind story magic, because not everyone can play this game for hours and hours and may not want to kind of sit there and do those tasks all the time. Now, something I will mention, which you can kind of decide yourself if it's a con or a pro, I'm kind of in both camps about it, so I'm curious to know what you think, but that is that this DLC notably has a lot less resources than the previous. Obviously, if you go in the fishing collection, there's a lot less fish. There seems to be a considerable amount of gatherables in terms of like ingredients and things like that, and growable fruits and vegetables. I feel like it's pretty on par with that, but there's definitely less fruit trees. There is definitely obviously a smaller range of droppable resources, of gems, of things like that, and obviously, as I mentioned earlier, less critter colors. So it does seem they've kind of condensed things. Now, I think a lot of people will be in two camps about why this may be. I personally think it's they saw how much stuff was in A Rift in Time and they thought, this is too much stuff, we need to backtrack a bit. Because as someone who's played A Rift in Time, there is too much. There's too many things that spawn. You have like 4 different things that will spawn in one biome, which just means as soon as you've decorated, within a couple days, it is a mess again. There's too many spawnable things. There are so many gems to collect, so many resources, so many things that drop, so many time bending pieces, that it can be a bit overwhelming. And obviously a grind in the sense that you do have to kind of get all these resources and get hold of everything. So I feel like this time they might have just kind of taken a step back, spent more time on the landscaping, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I think they've spent more time on giving us things to decorate and kind of build around, and these beautiful biomes to build around. I think they've spent more time on that rather than giving us loads of different resources. Obviously, it is a pro and a con for different people. I personally think it's a good thing. I'm kind of happy with not having too much stuff, to be honest with you. And also with the game going forward, I feel like if they add everything in super early with the DLCs, we'll get to a point with the DLCs where they'll be like, what do we add? We have nothing. There's nothing to add. So I kind of prefer the way that they have done that this time, but I feel like it is completely up to interpretation. So it's completely up to you whether you view that as a pro or a con. Now, talking of obviously resources, we have lots of craftables we can make in this DLC. I can't really tell if it's more or less than the last one. I feel like it's pretty equal. And these are obviously all curated to the different biomes. They are some of the most gorgeous furniture pieces I feel like we have in game. I would have liked a couple more paving options and maybe some more things like that. I also would have loved some Storybook Vale wallpapers and flooring in Scrooge's, but I do think we've got some really good clothes from Scrooge's so far. We've got a bunch of furniture items that I cannot wait to get my hands on. I've seen some incredible ones on the Discord that people have got their hands on, so I'm very excited to see those. And obviously, yeah, in terms of craftables, I feel like there is a really good amount of stuff. I think there's some really beautiful stuff in there, really unique stuff, and I cannot wait to start decorating with it. So I think they've absolutely smashed it on the furniture side of things. Obviously, we've got the furniture and clothing as well that you get from the tapestries, so it is kind of ongoing. And then obviously, as well as that, we have the character friendship rewards. So the character friendship rewards are all unique to them, and I feel like they've really done a good job of giving us some really cool stuff with their friendship rewards. I think they all really fit the kind of cottagecore whimsical feel of the DLC itself. I think they're really unique to the characters, and I just think they've done really, really well with those friendship rewards. So I'm definitely excited to get my hands on all of that stuff too. Now, one thing I will mention as a con, and obviously this is going to be something that will be fixed, it's not going to be an ongoing issue, but if you are thinking of picking up the DLC anytime soon, and this is kind of going to determine your decision, just be aware there is quite a few bugs at the moment with the DLC. This is naturally what happens when new content gets released. Things get tested that aren't usually tested, which is a shame. I feel like they do maybe need to do a little bit more testing with certain stuff, just to kind of, even if you have a person that works in Gameloft that kind of plays the game for like a week or so, just to give it a good test run, and notice these things that are slightly wrong can be tweaked before it launches, I think would be a really good idea, because some of these bugs are a bit of a pain. For me personally, I don't think they've affected my enjoyment of the DLC. I don't think they've affected me being able to do things, but I know for some people there has been kind of things that they haven't been able to do or have taken longer because of the bugs, or have considerably made things kind of less enjoyable for them. But these obviously, as I said, will be things that are fixed. So we've got the flowers spawning under the bridge, and if you try and pick them up, they crash your game completely. That's a big one. I feel like definitely should have been noticed before now. We've also obviously got the characters that seem to kind of freeze and glitch. Now, I've noticed when I'm going around with the 3 new characters and I am collecting snippets, and then they obviously go to drop a snippet, they seem to kind of go back to their last point of where they were stood. It's kind of a strange, I'm not sure how it's worked in coding. I thought it was linked to the wells. It seemed like they would go back to the previous well that they were at, or the previous house they were at. So I don't know if maybe it's where they've kind of entered or kind of got to a new biome via a house or a teleporter or anything like that. They kind of seem to just moonwalk away and go back to that area, and then they'll throw you the resource you're looking for. Now, I don't know if it does this with other resource gathering, because they are all snippet collectors for me. So if anyone has got them as any other tasks like mining or gardening or anything, do let me know if it does it with this as well. But I have definitely noticed it with snippet catching and them dropping the snippets. So that is hopefully something they can take a look at, because that doesn't really affect gameplay, but it is just kind of takes you out of the world a little bit and does make things go a little bit slower. And yeah, I just find it kind of funny to look at, to be honest. Now, obviously, some people have experienced some kind of slower gameplay and glitching with the DLC, and I will say if you are on a older console or a Switch or anything like that, the DLC is kind of packed full of so much in this world, even without you having decorated or done anything. So I would say definitely make sure you have got a lot of storage on your console. You have kind of lowered the graphics down, and it should help with your performance. It is a big kind of chunk of data that you're adding into your game. So some glitching and freezing and stuff like that unfortunately does kind of just come with the older consoles, which is a shame. But I know some people on even newer consoles and PC have noticed the odd little kind of glitches and freezes. I've noticed it a couple times where I will just like freeze randomly when I'm gliding or something, and then it will kind of come back a few seconds later, which I think may just be, I don't know, maybe it just needs a little bit more optimization, which is a shame. But I think when you're adding a whole new amount of data into the game, it may kind of come with these things. Now, as I said, all of these should be hotfixed. I personally think they'll be hotfixed on December 4th when we get our new update. I don't see them doing a hotfix before that, only because obviously they might as well just do it all at the same time. So hopefully some of these issues are looked at and fixed, especially the flower spawning one, because obviously if you are trying to do the quest, you may need these flowers, you may need them for craftables, and it obviously does completely crash the game. So I think that's probably going to definitely be on their list. But I think in general, I hope they just look at some of the things that people have picked up and obviously hotfix those. So if you are planning on buying the DLC anytime soon, they're just something to be aware of, that they are ongoing. Now, overall, I think those were the main key points I wanted to talk about with the DLC. So now I'll kind of give my general overview of, in my opinion, what I feel like is pros and cons and things that I kind of love about the DLC, and also maybe could be a con for you if you're not sure. Now, something I will say about the DLC is I personally am obsessed with it. I am loving it. It's very much my vibe. If you're into this kind of like whimsical book, cottagecore, fairycore kind of vibe, this is very much for you. I felt like the last DLC wasn't so tailored to my kind of thing, but I still really thoroughly enjoyed it. But this one is definitely a lot more kind of in touch with my interests and things I've always wanted in game. We got a ton of foliage in this DLC, much more than the last one, to decorate with in both the here, Eternity Isle, the base game, wherever you want to decorate. I think they've done an amazing job with making all of the foliage look incredible, and they've definitely understood that we want foliage and that we definitely are going to be using these. If I was going to overall kind of, if I would recommend the DLC, I 1000% would. I would obviously let people know going into it that there are a few bugs and a few things to be aware of, but I do think overall it is very, very worth the price point. I personally bought the magical edition, so the bigger one that came with the extra stuff. I feel like it's not necessary unless you are someone who really likes the items or really needs the moonstones. The moonstones obviously end up being a cheaper rate than you would if you paid in-game for them. So it is definitely good value for money, but I'd say if you're not interested in those items and you don't really need moonstones, then it's not going to really make any difference to the DLC for you. You don't get anything else additional in-game apart from those. So I'd say if you want to miss out on those, then that's fine. Overall, I'd highly recommend the DLC. I think if I was going to try and pick between this one and the previous, I think I would say this one tops it for me only because it is my kind of thing. I think the biomes are curated much better. I think they're much easier to maneuver. And I think the questing is a lot more engaging and expansive. So those would be my kind of main things that are an improvement from the previous DLC. I think they've learned a lot about what we kind of liked and disliked from the last one. They've kind of improved upon it, but I still do think A Rift in Time is worth it. You get some incredible characters and obviously great quest line and amazing furniture. Some of the stuff that we got in that one was absolutely unreal, so I would never say don't get that one. I just think this one, if it is more your kind of aesthetic, is definitely a more beautiful and more curated DLC. It seems a lot more tied up in a little bow than A Rift in Time did. I hope this helped you out in case you were considering getting the DLC or kind of recommending it to a friend. Those are my main things I could think of as pros and cons. Obviously, there probably will be other things for other people, so if you do have any other pros and cons that you want to let people know about, do pop them in the description. Please do try and keep it positive. Obviously, the game does have a couple of bugs at the moment, and I know some people on some consoles are struggling with it, but hopefully these are things they will fix going forward. They should put out stuff for it on December 4th, we can assume, with the next free base game update. And obviously just let me know if you are enjoying the DLC, and if you did pick it up, what's your favorite part about it? What's your top thing that you would say to someone that they must have when it comes to this DLC? Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. All your support helps out my channel so much, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.